What's up? It's Jen Brown. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have a special video because this was actually my first requested video, which was really exciting. So I want to give a shout out to Mandy R for requesting this. I was really happy to do it. So today I'm going to show you how I make embroidered patches, and if you've never embroidered before, I'm going to go over some of the basics. This is not quite a full embroidery tutorial video, but there are plenty of places to check those out if you want a little bit more of a comprehensive tutorial on that, but I will kind of go over some of the basics. So let's get started making a patch. Alright, so I've got my stuff set up, or I'm going to have it set up. Sorry if you can hear music from next door. I can't tell if it's our neighbors to the side or to the back, but somebody is getting their R&B on, so we can just jam out along while we embroider. So I will kind of briefly go through some of the tools and stuff if you've never done embroidery before. I will say I am mostly self-taught with this, so I don't know like proper names for stitches and things like that, but this is all just like pretty basic, I think. This is what I keep all my embroidery floss in. I have so much, but this is seriously over like years and years of collecting it. You can buy individual ones. Sometimes they come in a pack, which is how you end up with all of this, but you can buy them individually if you don't want to collect a ton. So this is what we're going to be doing today. I know I just made a video about finishing my battle jacket, but when someone asked as a comment on that video how I do my patches and I decided I wanted to make this one, I was like, you know what? One of my favorite bands is not represented on that jacket, and that is Men Without Hats. If you don't know who they are the guys that sing the Safety Dance. I totally unironically really like their music, so I am going to do a version of their logo. So this is their logo. That's what we're recreating today. I decided to do it on a gray background, so I'm actually going to do white instead of black for the head, and then obviously just do the red for the stop sign. So this is the logo we're going with. As you can see, I am just doing this on a piece of denim. Denim is my favorite to work with for patches. Anytime I'm gonna make like cut-off shorts, or I just like have something that I am using for scrap denim, I actually will cut the leftovers into squares. So as you can see, I have quite the stash of all different colors and styles of denim that I can use to make patches. I also have some faux leather left over from a project I did a million years ago that I like to use sometimes. If you are just going to be using regular fabric, you might want to get interfacing to put on the back. That'll help make it sturdier, because if you're trying to embroider fabric that is too thin, it'll have a harder time holding the thread. It is still possible. I have done it before, but it's going to make your fabric get kind of wrinkly and stuff. So what you'll need is whatever you're going to make your patch on. Some scissors, obviously, your embroidery floss. I'm just going to be using the red and white, like I said. An embroidery hoop, and you can get these in circles like this. These small ones are really great for patches just because that way they're like easier to hold in your hand. You can get big giant ones or oval shaped ones, and you just kind of figure out what's gonna fit. Then you'll need a needle as well, and then obviously your design. This one goes underneath. this fits in here pretty well. You don't want it to be so close to your design that you're having to like worry about the fact that this underneath wood piece comes over here. So you don't want to be too tight to the edges, but this is fine. One of the first things I learned when I learned how to embroider, I think this is all pretty much the same color red. It's a little different actually. This one is 666. That's kind of funny. We'll do these little ones first to get rid of them. One of the first things I learned is you actually want to split your thread. If you can embroider with this. If you do, I would suggest getting one of these really big darning needles or yarn needles, because you will be fighting to try to get this through the eye of the needle all day long. This is just going to use up your thread really fast, but if you're trying to outline something or you just want a nice thick line that you don't have to do multiple passes with, go for it. But on principle, I will usually just cut not too much. And I will take it and split it in half so that you have 3 and 3. There are 6 individual threads that make these up usually. Sometimes there are 8. I usually use like a just kind of like medium size needle. Let's do, this one's got thread in it. We'll pull that out. If I'm working with something that has really small details, I will sometimes split these into thirds and do 2 strings at a time. Come on. I know you can use those like little metal things that help you thread your needle. I always lose those. And I've never really understood how to use them, but there we go. Sometimes if you lick the end, it works. Then I always like to start by outlining everything. You don't have to do that, but for me, it helps make sure that this pen or pencil line isn't going to show, and it just kind of helps me block everything out, and then I can just go back and fill it in, and it really helps me stay in the line. So I will zoom in on this a little bit so you can see more what I'm doing, and then I'll get started. You can tie a knot in this back part if you're worried about accidentally pulling it back out. I usually just kind of hold it off to the side, and once you do a few stitches, you won't need to hold it anymore. So you just go nice and slow. Let's go this way around. It's really up to you about whether you want to do longer stitches or shorter ones. As you can see, these 2 that I just did are not consistent at all. I think I will go kind of somewhere in the middle. Yeah, that was a little too long, especially when you're doing circles. Sometimes shorter stitches are a little better. And I found that the best way to get a nice solid line without any gapping is to come back and actually put your needle a little bit into your previous stitch. Otherwise, there will be that big gap. If you run into trouble and make a mistake, I have found that just taking the thread out, you can use the back of the needle to just pull things back out. So you can undo it if you catch it fast enough. Like this one here, I did not do that on purpose. that line doesn't really work very well. So I will just pull that out, rethread, and then I can fix it. Okay, so once I got everything outlined, I went ahead and just did most of this so that I could show you what it looks like. When it's nearly finished, I am going to go back through and probably do a black outline around this. If I didn't want to do a different color, I would probably go back through with a thin red line and just kind of redo that outline a little bit. So I'll show you how I'm doing this with this last bit here. If you've never done this before, you might be surprised at how long it takes. This is one of those projects that I just like to sit in front of the TV, or I actually rode my stationary bike for a while doing this. I know some people that might make you motion sick, but I rode about 6 miles while I was working on this for a while. But this whole process plus this outline and this little bit of filling in that I started to do was probably about 5 hours yesterday. So it's kind of a long-term thing. This is actually a pretty big patch. So it's just something that if you like to do crafts or something while you watch TV, the time passes pretty quickly, but it is something I enjoy. If your thumbs start to get sore from the needle, you can buy those like thimble things for your fingers. I never liked those. Mine started to get a little bit sore towards the end of the night last night, but it really wasn't that bad. A trick I have, if you are using a longer piece of thread like this to help keep it from getting knotted up at the back, is I will just kind of take my fingers and hold it out here as I'm pulling it through. Because if you try to just let it go through, let me see if I can make it happen. It'll start to just bunch up. And sometimes that's totally fine, but sometimes it'll kind of start to make knots. So I'll just hold it like with my fingers, like I said. So you can see I'm following this outline I made. Sometimes I have to make corrections. Sometimes I have to go back and straighten out lines a little bit. But I am just making, if I can get that in the right spot, these little short lines. Okay, now that that is all done, I can go ahead and do the white. I will probably come back through and do a little bit of a cleaner outline on this, but for now I'm going to show you how to fill in space. If you like, you can tie knots as you go in the back. I tend to just kind of do everything, and then any really obvious loose stuff like this, I'll go back through and just kind of tie a knot with whatever is next to it once I'm finished. So that's kind of just your preference of which one you like better. Okay, so you can see I've started to fill this in a little bit, and I will be going back around to do another outline with this as well. I'm going to come back to this part because it'll be harder to show you filling in these tiny gaps, but for filling something in like this, I usually start not in the smallest area. I usually will kind of work back and forth between that. And I'm just going to be doing, well, I was going to say vertical lines. That wasn't the straightest, but that's okay. Vertical lines kind of working back and forth. I will get to some of the bigger areas so I can show you how I fill those in. For lines like this that are pretty short, and maybe even up to like here. Come on. One pass is fine, but when you start to get to bigger areas where one pass with the embroidery, you'd be able to kind of pick at the floss. So what I usually do is kind of stagger my lines. So I've done a long and a short. Then maybe I'll come down here. And now I'll go longer this way. I'm still coming back like I showed you when I was doing the outline and putting the needle through some of the thread so that it doesn't make that big gap. And you can kind of see I missed a little bit here. You can always come back and fill in any gaps. So I'm going to finish this up, finish up this outline, and I'll come back when we're working on the black outline around this. Okay, I'm just finishing up the last of the black outline. I wanted this to be a thinner line so that it didn't detract too much from the rest of the design, so I did 2 strings instead of 3. And this is just working out perfectly because this is the last of the black embroidery floss that I have, so that was definitely perfect that I chose to do the white. And there we go. Now I just trim, and like I said, I'll find any loose ends to tie up, and then I can cut this out. And now I've got a patch that's ready to put on whatever I want, and I will just hand stitch that on. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you are new to making your own patches or embroidery in general, if you like this video and you want to see more from me, feel free to subscribe. I post videos 2 to 3 times a month. Thanks so much for watching this one, and I'll see you next time.